resistance is mouse-like. Whoa, hey, look, that one's actually really cool.
Hello YouTube, this is DVD Review Studios here, and today I shall be doing a review on the complete fourth season of Rick and Morty on Blu-ray. Finally, we have the Region B release for this season. It's been quite a while since Region A and on the DVD Region 1 came out over in the US, and finally this past couple of weeks we have received the Region B variation of the Blu-ray, which I'm very glad to have in the collection. This season is going to be an interesting one to talk about, to say the least. It was split into two groups, consisting of 5 episodes each, obviously 10 in total, and both had their share of incredible and really underwhelming episodes. This season even included my least favourite episode of the entire show, the Dragon episode, or at least that was my least favourite until the Season 5 Spunk episode, which we'll talk about much later down the line. But there's a lot of stuff to appreciate from this season. I would honestly say a lot of the content is quite forgettable. I'm not a big fan of it purposefully trying to defy some of the ongoing stories that have evidently become fan favourites, as it would be. But it does essentially the complete opposite in some other instances, and I point directly at the clone Beth storyline, which I felt was not really going to go anywhere, but surprisingly did go somewhere. So there's a lot to unpack with this season. It's a 1-disc Blu-ray set. The bonus features, to be honest, are a bit meh. Most of the same as the YouTube kind of videos that were released and intertwined with each episode airing as they came out for Adult Swim. You got a video on YouTube just kind of unpacking the episode from the creator's perspective. So things like that, I'll be honest, aren't as interesting as what we have seen on previous seasons, such as animatics. Also, no commentaries at all on this season, which is a huge surprise. I guess it is fair to say current world events have likely had a hand in that kind of stuff being absent, but perhaps one day we'll see more released in other mediums. Maybe just more stuff online would be interesting, to say the least. But discussing the season in general, we have some of the most incredible animations and character designs, despite how I may feel about certain episodes. Characters such as Chachi. Rest in peace, Chachi.
Chachi!
The dragons were a very unique design. I loved the alien doctor in the finale episode in the mech suit. The Hitler snake was very amusing. The snake with legs was something I didn't know I wanted to see, but in short, there is a lot of stuff to cover. But this Blu-ray set has 10 episodes, all of which are thankfully uncensored, which I'm a big fan of. And the total runtime for this Blu-ray set, you're looking at 223 minutes. And the set is rated a 15 here in the UK for strong language, gory violence, sex references, and drug misuse. So without further ado, let us go through the episodes and discuss them in detail. First up, we have the premiere episode, Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Repeat. Honestly, this is one of the best episodes, really, of the entire show, but definitely a standout from this season. And I really appreciate how certain aspects of the show from previous seasons have carried over, where we have an obvious kind of shift in power, where Rick is no longer the head of the family as he so thought. And so, this being a Morty-centric episode, we see him juggle the concept of death as he helps Rick obtain death crystals, which allow him to predict how he may die. And Morty, he keeps one for himself, where the crystal actually possesses his actions in both hilarious and terrifying ways. And I did really enjoy the side plot with Rick being killed accidentally, and we have a repeated gag of his consciousness being rerouted to backup vats across the multiverse. Encouraging Morty to actually clone Rick was quite a nifty sort of touch to this aspect of the story.
Hey! Ho ho! Not cloning your grandpa has got to go!
Overall, there was a lot of creative ways to show sort of alternative character designs for both Rick and Morty, and this made for an overall very solid opening to this season. Next up is The Old Man and the Seat, and this is an episode I actually enjoyed a lot more on the rewatch, where the payoff is a mixture of both hilarity and tragedy, showing how really Rick is arguably one of the loneliest people in the galaxy. And when he discovers that someone has been using his very private, secluded toilet, he goes on a ludicrously complicated manhunt to actually kill this person. And bizarrely, he can't go through with it. The alien character, Tony, was just too nice to kill. And in all honesty, that plot was great, but I did actually prefer the side plot to this episode, where we have Taika Waititi guest voicing the alien intern character Galuti, who is intent on creating a mobile app to distract the human race, while his species depletes the planet of water, which results in quite an interesting dynamic for a Morty and Jerry adventure. One crew over the cuckoo's Morty. I forgot to mention just how punny these episode titles are for this season, but similarly to the last episode, I enjoyed this one a lot more upon the rewatch, but I felt this is kind of where the lackluster episodes began for this season. Where Rick is jealous of a heist artist named Miles Knightley, and so he forms his own crew to go up against him in a heist-off, where he's instead double-crossed by his own invention, bizarrely, known as the Heistatron. And the plot for this episode is purposefully kind of designed to satirize heist movies in general, such as Ocean's 11, to name one off the top of my head. This episode overall, it features some really bizarre kind of character cameos. It was great to see Mr. Poopy Butthole once again, and I honestly felt the ending was the most underwhelming part, revealing how Rick set up this entire adventure just to discourage Morty from writing a heist movie script. It made sense, it kind of adds to his selfish characterization, which to an extent I appreciate, but it could have potentially been written a lot more in depth, perhaps, just to basically add a lot more layers to Rick emotionally connecting with Morty, since he needs Morty, and that is evident from a plot such as this, as Morty writing a script could deter him from going on sort of random adventures with Rick, so something like that could have maybe been developed on a little bit more rather than being the punchline.
You son of a bitch! I'm in!
Claw and Hoarder Special Ricktums Morty, for certain my least favourite episode of this entire season, although some of the dialogue is purposefully kind of grotesque and made to be exaggerated, which is really some of the funniest moments. The story is just really disinteresting. I felt as though it just didn't really fit well for Rick and Morty, both as characters and within this universe, where Rick promises to get Morty a dragon just for coming along on an adventure that we don't even get to see, where we have the dragon character soul bonding with Rick accidentally just because he prefers Rick as a person, which makes Morty jealous, and really the only redeeming factor of this episode was the Jerry/talking cat plot, which was amusing, but again, seemed to leave more to the imagination than delivering on anything thought-provoking for this show. Rattlestar Rick Lactica is supposedly based on some concepts originally intended for the first season of the show, and this episode after the last couple felt very fresh and exciting, featuring aspects of time travel, something that the show does tend to try and stay away from, where Morty is bitten by a space snake that he kills in self-defense, and then he strangely feels bad for the society of sentient snakes on their own little planet that will never actually know what happened to the astronaut that they sent out into space. And so, thinking he's doing the right thing, he tries to replace the snake, and then he sends a snake back to the planet, only to inspire a Terminator homage of time travel chaos. And with sentient snakes taking arms against the Smith family, Rick is forced to invent time travel for the snakes in order to push them back into the Dark Ages and reset their timeline. This was honestly one of the most convoluted episodes, and I loved every single bit of it. The historical references were great, the cameo of the Time Police from the Season 2 premiere was great and fit very well for this narrative. Easily one of the most creative episodes of the season. And speaking of narrative, Never Ricking Morty is the opening episode to the second half of this season. And in terms of writing, this is for sure one of the best episodes and definitely a standout, which makes reference to a writing concept used by co-creator Dan Harmon, where we see Rick and Morty aboard a train full of various enemies we have actually never seen before, but each of them has their own backstory for hating Rick to some capacity, and each of these stories is like a bizarre kind of anthology kind of thing, where each carriage of the train corresponds to a point in Harmon's story circle, which is something he has used time and time again to write various TV show episodes. And I honestly really enjoyed this. Watching this for the first time, it was a very lucid episode, but it was pleasing to see various concepts used to kind of poke fun at storytelling within this show in particular. And the villain Storylord was a unique character, literally stealing all of the story potential from these characters, which included evil Morty, and there's nothing really harmful about using that character as part of this story-trained story, but this usage was just a literal response to the overhype evil Morty rightfully has. And this character is genuinely one of the main reasons I have stuck around for the show, where I hope there will be a significant payoff as the series does continue. But I felt it was kind of a cheap shot, to be honest. It kind of contradicts what we have all been hoping for anyway, which is obviously the point, but it just felt a little bit of a kind of low blow to me personally, but I did enjoy a lot of the story concepts introduced throughout this episode. Promortyus takes heavy inspiration from the Alien franchise, where we see Rick and Morty attempt to survive, infiltrating a planet inhabited by a species of face-hugging style aliens, who respond to the group name Glorzo, and we see Summer unintentionally becoming their sort of chosen kind of god figure, just from having a toothpick in her mouth preventing the facehuggers from controlling her in particular, as Rick and Morty attempt to save her. This episode is overall okay. The animation is very unique throughout, to say the least, with people literally shitting eggs and exploding. But it wasn't anything too special. I just enjoyed it really for what it was, in all honesty. The Vat of Acid episode, literally titled The Vat of Acid episode, this is easily my favourite episode of the entire season. It really does enhance the show's creativity, where we have even a huge portion of this episode relying on visual storytelling with very little to no dialogue, and the music throughout is very touching as well, where Morty makes fun of Rick's idea of hiding from gangsters in a fake vat of acid.
Vat of fake acid? Are you dying of dementia?
How are you talking to me like this?
And from this, Morty begins to question Rick's capabilities. He kind of provokes Rick, saying that he's slipping as an inventor, suggesting that he cannot create one desired invention in particular of a place-saving remote, which is kind of like respawning in a video game. And showing Morty that he can do anything, Rick does invent the device, but with brutal consequences that will forever scar Morty. There were a lot of layers to this story, including the crucifying relationship sequence. There was a lot of very evocative moments throughout, and that one in particular was just absolutely gut-wrenching, especially for Jerry to be the one to kind of fuck things up as it typically goes. Only this time for other people. Definitely a unique episode to say the least, and one that will definitely live in my memory for quite a while. Childrick of Mort was another weaker episode to this season, but bizarrely I felt Jerry was actually the standout character, having the most interesting influence throughout. With some episodes of this show in particular, I feel things are very overcomplicated, and this episode is certainly one of them, with an A, B, and C plot converging on the same conclusion. Going on camping together as a family, the trip is initially led by Jerry, where Rick reveals that he has had relations, to put it politely, with a planet. And this results in the camping trip derailing as the family visit this planet, which is actually giving birth to a civilization of bizarre, Rick-looking clay men. And I don't know why, but the little noise that they made was kind of adorable. And so Rick works together with Beth as they try to establish a society for these little clay men. All the while, Jerry is feeling rejected for wanting to camp traditionally, and so Morty and Summer leave him behind and find a crashed spaceship while exploring. And personally, I feel Jerry's story had the most screen time throughout, really, where Jerry unites the rejects from the Society project and causes them to revolt against the Society, which was definitely an interesting kind of concept that I just wish had been developed a lot more. I wasn't really big on the god fight between Rick and the Zeus-style character. It had some enjoyable moments throughout, but this was just another okay episode for me personally. And finally we have Star Mort, Rick Turn of the Jerry. Compared to previous seasons, this finale episode was decent, but felt very mediocre for the payoffs that we were given. It has one goal in mind from the get-go, revealing the identity of the Beth clone, and which variation of Beth is the real Beth, and I didn't really know what to expect from the big reveal, but I was pleasantly surprised by how not even Rick knew which one was his real daughter, and this keeps things kind of ambiguous going forward, where I hope there's more story potential planned behind the Space Beth character. But other than this, the comedy is strong throughout, but the Tammy and Bed person aspect of this story is honestly where it fails for me. I hoped for a lot more, especially after the scenes from the Story Train episode. Things felt kind of rushed in this finale, as though things were kind of cut too short. The only redeeming factor, I will admit in hindsight now, is the Bird Person story does have more continuation thanks to Season 5, which did help on the rewatch for this finale, but otherwise, I just felt it left a lot to be desired and could have been expanded on a lot more. Overall, as it stands, I did like this season, even though it was, as I mentioned, very much a mixed bag. There is nothing overtly disappointing beyond a few missed opportunities that I mentioned throughout, and in terms of what strengths this season has, the animation quality is absolutely superb. Likewise with the character designs, they are phenomenal. And as shown behind the scenes, the teams that work on this show work incredibly hard to create something that is not only unique as far as the series stands, but they create something that clearly means a lot to the masses, and I always look forward to what content is coming up. And now it seems that thankfully Rick and Morty will be released in more frequent succession. That hopefully means no more kind of mid-season breaks like we experienced with this season, thanks to, I guess, obvious world events, and beyond that, I hope there won't be any sort of year-long kind of pauses between seasons like we had previously. I'm thankful that, from the looks of things now, we are on a consistent Rick and Morty path for frequent airings yearly of the show. Anyway, to wrap up this video, let us have a brief look at the Blu-ray properly. The special features I didn't really delve into too much when I spoke of them before, so we have a day at Rick and Morty inside Season 4. Definitely an informative feature that really does give you a look behind the scenes and behind really the people that work very hard on this show. We have inside the episodes for every episode, basically just more of the YouTube kind of content that's been passed over onto the Blu-ray and DVD, creating snake jazz. That was a nice touch. I always appreciate anything that relates to a soundtrack or something of the sort for a TV show or a movie. Directing Rick and Morty, Samurai and Shogun, character creation, prop process, and animation challenges, those last three in particular, were again very informative and very enjoyable. And even though this Blu-ray set does look great for the artwork on the front cover, sadly no inside artwork, and not even any disc artwork either. The US Blu-ray and DVD release had both, so I think that's just sadly a lackluster variation of this release compared to what we have had in previous sort of releases, even the sort of Region B kind of Australian releases, such as this one for Season 3. Incredible artwork, so I might actually print something off for the inside artwork of my Season 4, but anyway, that's going to do it for this review. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave me a like down below. Let me know in the comments, how did you feel about Season 4 of Rick and Morty? Have you been enjoying Season 5? Where do you want the show to go next? Be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And for more content, be sure to subscribe.
Are you threatening me?